I want to welcome everybody to our Legal Automation webinar series, which is sponsored by Black Hills IP. Black Hills IP is a US-based IP docketing and paralegal service provider that focuses on using technology and automation to provide the highest level of quality available today. For our webinar series, we are bringing together experts to talk about how automation, artificial intelligence, and expert systems are being used in the legal field. The Legal Automation webinar series is free. This is one of several monthly webinars that we have in this series. The schedule and registration information for upcoming webinars in this series is listed on our website. To register for future webinars, go to the Educational Resources tab on the Black Hills IP website, which is www.blackhillsip.com. The webinar that we are presenting today will cover expert systems. We've allowed time at the end of the webinar for questions. You can submit questions at any time throughout the program, but your questions will be held in a queue until the end of the presentation. The presenters today are myself, Susan Halen, and Dan Yarmoluk. I'm Ann McCracken, the president of Black Hills IP. I'm a patent attorney with 21 years experience in patent prosecution. I was a partner at the Schwegman firm for 10 years, and I also was a full-time law professor and directed the patent prosecution program at Franklin Pierce Law Center in Concord, New Hampshire for 5 years. Susan, can you tell the audience about your background?
Sure. So my name is Sue Helen. I work for IBM in our technology and intellectual property area. My background is in both engineering and for the last 6 years in the IP area. So we'll go into more detail about that later.
Thank you, Susan. And Dan, can you give the audience a little bit of background on yourself?
Sure. I'm an industrial Internet of Things professional, leveraging both data science and what we're going to get into, expert systems to create further productivity and automation on the industrial side of Internet of Things.
Great. Well, Dan and Susan, thank you so much for taking time to join us today. This webinar that we're presenting today is the second in a series of webinars on legal automation, AI, and expert systems. The future webinars that will be coming in this series focus on document proofing, transaction management, legal research AI tools, machine-assisted due diligence, and contract and document analysis. Our first one, which is available on our website if you missed it, was on document automation. So our goal with this webinar series is to just increase the overall awareness of legal automation, AI, and expert systems. So the topics that we'll be covering today are just an introduction to expert systems, then a brief comment on expert systems in the legal field, and then we'll talk about what Susan's group is doing at IBM with augmented intelligence and intellectual property. So first, I'm going to turn this to Dan to talk about what is an expert system and give us some examples of applications for expert systems.
Sure. We have this new field of artificial intelligence, which is broken down into deep learning and machine learning. But, if we look at it at a very basic level, this expert system is a computerized system emulating human judgment or decision-making abilities. So we're trying to go through vast reams of if-then statements or decision trees to kind of classify a group. And let me provide some examples. Very easy one that we know of is spam. Is something spam or is it not spam? If we look at things like Netflix recommendation systems, you like an action movie, therefore you might like these action movies or this actor or actress or this genre. We see that also with Amazon. If we go a little bit deeper into the retail or e-commerce sphere or any kind of customer service realm, you see these conversational bots or automated phone dialers where we're prompted to go to 1, 2, or 3. It's kind of funneling us or getting us to that relevant information that we want to get to. And as we get to more advanced areas, on my industrial area, we're trying to trigger alerts for process changes. We want to understand when a machine's going to break down and give sensor data to a technician so that they can preempt those problems. And then we hear of exciting things like medical devices or doctors in general, like classifying millions of tumors instead of having a single radiologist looking at, say, 1,000 in his mind that he could categorize. And then we're getting into other businesses that are leveraging it, like Black Hills IP, and automating specific parts of the process in the legal realm. So this is a great way of describing the end goal of what you want, not just a machine learning model, but rather a system that guides you in the right direction to make better decisions. So in my mind, it's emulating human experts and getting them to the right bucket of information, and doing it in a much more effective way, leveraging computing power, leveraging the cloud, leveraging the power of artificial intelligence now to do those hard gronking tasks by machines, and then let the humans do the human activities that are more creative or require more judgment in a way that we should leverage both appropriately.
All right, Dan, did you have any more comments, or do you want me to jump in next?
No, please go right ahead.
All right. All right, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about expert systems in the legal field. A few examples. For example, I'm sure how many people in the audience have used or know someone who has used TurboTax. TurboTax is a good example of a tax planning tool that's an expert system. Other examples are there are several tools available for preparation of non-disclosure agreements. There's lots of tools available for estate planning, for wills and trusts, also even preparation of leases where you need to determine what types of clauses go into the lease. I even saw one in preparing for this presentation in which an expert system was determining for HR purposes if a individual was correctly categorized as a contractor or an employee of an organization. So there's lots of different uses of expert systems in the legal field, and there's lots of reasons to use them. One reason is it just reduces time spent on administrative tasks. Particularly in the law firm environment, you can use them as a way to reduce fees for your clients. And then in a lot of instances, like the TurboTax or some of the estate planning tools, you can use them to increase access to legal knowledge and maybe not even need to consult an attorney for things that are straightforward enough. So those are some general examples. In the IP space, if you attended our webinar last week or 2 weeks ago on document automation, we had a speaker from the company called TurboPatent, and they talked about a product called RoboReview, which is an expert system for reviewing patent applications and office action responses. If you missed that program, again, that webinar is available on our website. You can go back and hear both the audio and the slides. But that's an example of a commercially available IP system, expert system. Then we at Black Hills IP have developed our own expert system that we use when providing docketing services. And just to give you a brief overview, essentially, we have a system that assists in determining what a document is in the docketing process. And then after it's correctly determined what the document is, let's say a non-final office action or a final office action or a restriction requirement, after it makes that determination, then it uses its rules engine to determine what should be docketed in the docketing system. The system doesn't replace a docketing system. There's lots of really good commercial docketing systems out there like Foundation IP or Anaqua or any others. We don't replace that docketing system. Instead, our tool is focused on eliminating the potential for the human error component that sometimes happens when a docketer is determining what information to put into the docketing system. What are the inputs? And think about it as the inputs into the docketing system. That's what our expert system focuses on. So I don't want to go into too much detail on that because I really want to focus on some of the really exciting things that IBM is doing and the work that Susan Halen's group has going on. So Susan, I'm going to turn it over to you to share with us what your group's working on.
Great, thank you. So building off of what you've heard so far, expert systems and artificial intelligence, and actually at IBM we call it augmented intelligence, are really coming to the forefront and becoming an integral part of how you analyze and actually go through data. So briefly, we'll talk about, oh, it did work. Hey, I'm impressed. First of all, when IBM thinks about IP, we don't think about just patents. It's everything. You guys know the definition of IP, but I want to make it clear that when we talk about AI, we're talking about trade secrets and trademarks and service marks and know-how and copyrights, and in addition to the patenting. So it isn't just a system that can do one thing. So to give you some background on our organization and how we're set up, within IBM, each brand has IP professionals and portfolio managers, but at the top level, at the corporate level, is where my team sits. And my team has an internal function and an external function. The main priority for the entire organization is to develop, protect, monetize all of our IP. We've been #1 in US patents for 25 years. We have an active portfolio of 63,000 plus worldwide active patents, a lot of active applications. That means a lot of office actions. That means a lot of maintenance decisions. That means a lot of portfolio management to understand, do we have the right stuff protecting our products at the right time? So there's an awful lot that goes into the background of this as to where we patent, what we patent, and what we go after. I'm going to focus on patents for the rest of this talk, but really consider it to be across trademarks also and anything else, any other kind of IP. So my team, my external team, does two things. One is we have a consulting group that does IP management consulting, starting from IP strategy on the very front end and going into how do you leverage your IP, whether you're using open source or defensive or supporting your litigation, or how are you actually leveraging making money or making influence based off of your patent portfolio or your IP portfolio as a whole. The second part of my team is internally focused, and we run some of the tools that our patent engineering folks use. We run a lot of the landscaping for the individual brands. We help out with judgments on maintenance decisions or input into the maintenance decision. So there's a lot of different things that the group is involved in. So if we take this and think about where does AI fit in, all of us out there use all the tools that are available, whether it's Enography or Clarivate or Foundation IP or Anaqua or whatever. All these tools come together to help you do IP and to do searches and to find information. We looked at it about a year ago and said, what about augmented intelligence? What about how can we apply Watson into this environment and get better decisions faster and actually unbiased and go through the information much quicker? So let's define AI at IBM first. We call it augmented intelligence because it's really a key tenet of ours that it shouldn't be a replacement. It should be an addition. It should allow you to get through all of the I'll call it grunt work, all of the reading of massive amounts of data, of finding the information, it should be able to do a lot of those things up front for you so that you can then make a decision. You can read it. At the end, you can look at the subset. You can take it and apply your knowledge and your experience to that. That's why we call it augmented intelligence and not artificial intelligence. It should really augment your work. Machine learning is really the ability to continue learning without totally pre-programming things. You've probably heard a lot about teaching augmented intelligence systems and the learning that happens. We think that this needs to be a very transparent process, right? This needs to be something that you know how it was taught, the biases that were put in or not put in. You really want the most unbiased system that you can possibly get, and that's a tough thing to do. Artificial intelligence, it's when machines work intelligently. We want to combine that machine learning and the artificial intelligence to learn from results of other things, to give additional information, and to make the decisions better and better and better as you go. Cognitive computing is the overall term to look at systems that learn at scale. So think of this as Watson Health, Watson Legal. There's several different implementations of this that you can take a look at. But it's really a mixture of computer science, neural science, and cognitive science all together. Think about how you learn and think about what levels you progress to and how you corrected yourself as you went. AI needs to be doing the same kind of things as you move along. So what have we done with this? It should move. Maybe. There we go. AI over time at IBM, it's been going on since the early 50s, right? We had a checkers player that was a self-learning, call it an expert system at the time. We've continued on forward. Now we're in the age of Watson. So if you think about Watson, a lot of people think about it as the machine that won Jeopardy. That was a very early version of this. Since that point in time, we've added a number of Bluemix APIs, total algorithms, deep learning, industry solutions for finance, for health, for call centers, for all kinds of different things that have gone on. The latest thing that you might have heard about is a thing called Watson Debater. Now, Watson Debater is a way to actually take an argument base. So think about if you're in a debate team, you have a topic that you're going to debate. Watson can take a look at that, can come up with a point of view on it, whether it's a positive or negative, and then can argue that with the debater. It's really pretty powerful. It's brand new, and we think that this can be applied into IP eventually. It's not ready for prime time yet, but it's something that's definitely on the agenda for things that we want to include in the way that we approach IP. Think about being able to make an argument or to test out your arguments, right? To argue with Watson before you go argue with somebody else about any legal topic. That could be fascinating. So that's a future, but it's definitely something we have our eyes on. Now, the second part that you see at the end there is IP Advisor. An IP Advisor, okay, come on. IP Advisor was built because of these problems. One, there's just this proliferation of data, structured, unstructured data, whether it's a picture or a PDF file or a bunch of text, or it's actually a database with structured fields in it. All of those things come together into just a proliferation of data that none of us can keep up with. And it comes in many different forms. So if I'm a patent professional, whether I'm a patent engineer looking for infringement, or I'm on the legal side looking for prior art, or doing OAs, any of this, I've got a ton of information that I want to take a look at and use as my part of my analysis. Let's take a infringement or an evidence of use case and go into a little bit more detail. If I think about what I have to do that, I want to know, does the company I'm going after have enough money to pay me? I want to know where they're at from a litigation viewpoint. Are they very litigious or not? I want to know if their products are really impacted and how they're impacted, how deeply they're impacted. I want to know what other patents they have. I want to know where they stand. So everything that you see across the top of this chart, whether it's local news or litigation or products or people, I want to understand about that company before I go talk to them, in addition to actually finding the evidence of use, right? So there's a lot of things that go into that play. And so we looked at it and said, what do we need to know? And then who needs to know it? Can this be multiple use cases? Can this be multiple things? We all have tools. We all have tools that give us really nice charts to tell us about filing trends or what CPC codes or any realm of information you can get, but they don't really give you insights as to why those things might be important. There's too much data for anybody to read. There's too many formats. There's too many languages. Globally, you've got to look at where you're going to sell, manufacture, apply it. Where's the people coming from that are becoming new entrants into a market? All of these things come together into a need for some kind of a system. And that's what we came up with when we started using AI for this. We all have limits on people, on money, on time, and we all have biases. So we want to get rid of some of those things. So what can augmented intelligence do? A lot. And we found this to be true in our testing and in the system that we actually have prototype now and have in use within our organization and available for specific use. It's still a research asset, but it's out there. So speed, accuracy, and new insights. What do we mean by that? The proliferation of data makes it too big to get your hands around. And you can never read all of it. You don't have the time. So if Watson can read all of it, ingest it, analyze it before you do any queries against it, now you've got a platform. So using AI to ingest that information, analyze it up front, then provide you the insights, now you've got a platform to work with. And they should be a guide, right? We're not looking to say, here's the answer, here's the proof, here's the claim and the proof that you need to go after. That's not the way it works, and that's not the way it should work. There should be a human being involved in this to actually do the analysis on the back end and to actually say, yes, that's true, no, it's not. Yeah, that's good, but there might be other issues. Let's take a look at it. So the inference here is that we want it to be a guide. It needs to be augmenting what you're doing. So if I'm looking at a proof case and I've got to go through 60,000 patents and 1,000 documents to do it, this can do it very rapidly. It can analyze it and it can come up with that top 10 list for me. And that top 10 list points me in the right direction. It also provides you insights that you might have missed, whether it was because you did a keyword analysis or a semantic analysis and weren't able to do a conceptual analysis. AI, natural language learning, all allows you to do much more analysis than you could before. So it's really critically important to be able to take out the bias, read through all the data, leverage the expertise of what experts have taught the system to do, and then be able to use your skill set at the end of the day. So as we go through, we created a system called IBM, excuse me, IP advisor with Watson. And we're actually using it right now for evidence of use internally. We're using it for a little bit of prior art. We're using it for some maintenance decisions. But think about the realm of use cases that this kind of system could be used for. We've built a platform, and based off of that platform now, we want to take it to that next level. So we're building on use cases as we go, using it both internally and externally, and it's amazing the kind of results that you get. But when we talk about AI, let's think about the future. Think about how you can leverage this in different ways going forward. We think it's critical, and we think it's going to be used for a lot of different things out there. So this is what it is. For us, we're using patent data specifically and technology data. We're using natural language processing to go through it. We're getting new insights. We're also combining some other research techniques and algorithms to do trend analysis, to look at not only where things are today, but where they might go. Think about that if you're going to do a maintenance decision. What goes into a maintenance decision? Are you using it today? Does it have value? And could it be used tomorrow? And that could it be used tomorrow isn't really available anywhere. It's a leap of faith, or it's a knowledge of the inventor. But to be able to have a system that helps you define some of those things or identify potential areas, that could be huge. And if it's not an area that your company wants to go in, what about another company? That might be someone you could sell it to, right? So there's a lot of things you can do with this. The platform is there, multiple use cases. We're identifying new insights, new connections all the time to try and, oops, that's not good, to try and understand how to leverage this going forward. So that's a little bit about how we're using it. We're looking to apply it for many, many different things. We're working on taking some things from our research brethren on actually leveraging PDFs in a better way for both graphics and for text. We're looking at some different trends using the debater. So think about how that could be applied in different ways. So we're always talking to people about different ideas, and this is our beginning stage. It's available, and if you have more questions on it, feel free to contact me. So I know that was pretty quick, but I think it gave you the flavor of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how it can actually leverage some of the things that we're talking about for evidence of use, for prior art, for landscaping even. So with that, I'll turn it back over.
Thank you very much, Susan. You know, I think sometimes people are a little scared of expert systems and AI, and they, particularly in the legal space, sometimes view it as a threat to their role going forward. But certainly with the things you walked us through, I think that's all very exciting, and I see those all as opportunities for all of us who are in the IP space and the legal services space. So thank you very much for sharing what your group is doing. It's all pretty cool stuff. At this point, I'd like to remind the audience that if you do have questions on today's program, you can submit them with the question box that's on the control bar on the right-hand side of your screen. If you have general questions about Black Hills IP services or processes, please contact Jim Brophy. His contact information is on the screen right now. Certainly, Susan has offered, if you have more questions about what her group is doing, she's provided her contact information as well. Let me see if we have any questions. All right, Susan, there's one question that's directed to you. Is Watson being used for analysis of legislation? For example, converting US code sections into a flow chart or a plain English description?
Plain English from legalese. So Watson is being used for several different things. We do have a team called Watson Legal, and if you haven't talked to them or know about them, I'm happy to throw some contacts your way. It is actually looking at contracts more than it is anything else. But there are different areas of Watson that are looking at legal what shall I call it? We're doing analysis. Well, let me give an example. It's probably easier. Are in the environmental area. So there are a million laws on the books across the world for environmental and materials. If I'm a company that wants to put copper into a product and I want to know what legal things apply to that, I can do that with a system called electronic compliance, environmental compliance, I'm sorry. And that's a Watson-based system that actually does go out. It gathers all of the legal documents, it analyzes them, and it tells you which parts in which country apply to what you're trying to accomplish. So that part of it is there. There's also a RegTech piece that's using Watson that does the same kind of thing. Have we applied that to IP yet, to IP laws? No, we have not. But that is something that we're thinking about. It's just much more in the future.
Thank you, Susan. I don't have any other questions at this point, so I would like to remind the audience that our next webinar in this series is 2 weeks from today on August 29th at 1 p.m. Central Time. The topic for the next program is document proofing. To register for this upcoming webinar or to see a full list of all of our upcoming webinars, again, you can go to the Educational Resources menu on the Black Hills IP website. I'd like to thank Susan and Dan again for participating today, and I'd like to thank the audience as well, and I hope the audience will join us for this upcoming webinar and other webinars in the future. Actually, one last question, Susan, before we sign off. There's a question, is Watson an acronym for anything?
No, actually, Watson is named after our founder, Thomas Watson, Sr., actually. And so it was based off of our original founder in the early 1900s.
Wow, I did not know that. That's a really interesting fact. Thank you for sharing that. Well, again, thank you everybody for participating today. We hope you'll join us for the next webinar in this series. Thank you and have a great day.